Call the regular monthly meeting, bi-weekly meeting of the Dalton Select Board to order. Mr. Bishop, would you mind leading us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. First item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from December 11th, 2023. We'll do the roll call first.
D'Ionesco?
Here.
Robert Bishop?
Here.
Mark Strout?
Here.
Joe Diver will be late. John Boyle absent. Town Manager Tom Hutchison?
Here.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from December 11th, 2023?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we have the public address to the board. This is the time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask that you do the following. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company and institution you represent. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair or their designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda item, please make the request at this time. And the board chair may grant this request. We are meeting in person and making this meeting available via Zoom for the convenience of the public. Since we are meeting in person, we will not be responsible for any technical difficulties. So if you'd like to be sure of participating, please attend in person. Yes?
My name is Sharon Laverta. I live at 109 First Street.
All right. And what would you like to speak on today?
Well, I am here to express my surprise and upsetment at the article in iBerkshire. This is the second time that a member of the Select Board has besmirched their constituents. These people of Dalton publicly in print. How cowardly and childish. A kindergartner calls people they disagree with names, not elected Select Board members, and in print. I am disgusted at the calling of a Select Board's constituents as names. All Americans are entitled to free speech, but as a Select Board member, discretion is the ethical move. I am one of those referred to as a small-minded person because I didn't think the infrastructure in this area could support 33 units, and I don't appreciate that. I let it pass the first time something like this happened by Ms. Cherry, but not twice. I call upon Mr. Bishop to resign in disgrace for his derogatory remarks or for the board to expel him from his position as unworthy to hold it. At an absolute minimum, he should be formally reprimanded for his unethical behavior, and that reprimand be printed in the minutes. And an apology to the people of Dalton and iBerkshire. Thank you.
I just want to clarify for the record, you named Mr. Bishop, but I do not believe Mr. Bishop made those comments.
Oh, was it Mr. Boyle?
Correct.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
He's all right.
He was not here, yeah.
I
I was on the
apologize.
committee that knocked the building down.
Absent excused members at the last meeting was Robert Bishop, and we do have the minutes. But before we address that, I really appreciate you bringing your concerns to this board. And we are aware of what has been said, obviously, and we will be convening to discuss that. I don't believe at this meeting, it's not on the agenda today, but we can certainly put on a future agenda item to discuss.
Yeah, because
in
like
public.
I said, I let it go by the first time. but I think, more than once is just wrong.
Well, thank you, Sharon, and Sharon, right?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Obviously, we were here, and we will be addressing it at the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else like to say anything? Okay. With that, I'd like to move on to appointment ratifications. Town Manager Thomas Hutchison.
Yes, we have Mitchell Kyle, I believe, as Veterans Agent on Zoom. Can you hear us, and can you say something so we know we can hear you?
Yes, I'm here.
We can hear you. We can hear you well. Yes, very pleased. As you may know, our Veterans Agent resigned in December, and this program is being run by the City of North Adams, and North Adams has hired the new Veterans Agent. And perhaps you could just say a few words about yourself and your work.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Mitchell Keel. I actually grew up in Dalton and enlisted in the Marine Corps from there. So I know the area really well. I definitely know some of the veterans that I've already spoken to down there. I'm available Wednesday mornings. I usually arrive about 8:30, and I'm usually there till about lunchtime at the Senior Center in the health room. I've had a few veterans already come to me looking for assistance in VA claims, and along with those, still helping the veterans that Stephen Roy had helped with the 115 benefits. And I plan to continue to do that, and eventually get back to being down there for the full day Wednesday, once I get my feet wet more in the system.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Keel. We have a motion?
Go ahead. I make a motion to appoint Mitchell Keel as a Veterans Agent effective January 9th, 2024 to June 30th, 2024.
Second.
It should probably be the 22nd, because, sorry, we carried that over from the last agenda.
Okay.
I think that's a minor technical adjustment. We have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Keel, thank you so much for your service to our town and the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next agenda item, Lafayette Trail marker approval. Mr. Hutchison.
Yes, I was very pleased and surprised to find an email in my inbox proposing a sign marking a stop that General Lafayette made through a trip through Western Massachusetts. We have with us on Zoom a representative from the Lafayette Trail Association or Society, sorry, not sure which, and perhaps he could explain a little bit more about the project. Everyone does have your letter, so just so you know. You are on Zoom, on mute, by the way.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, excellent. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the possibility of addressing the board. My name is Julien Nichet. I'm a French national. I am representing the Lafayette Trail, which is the nonprofit that contacted you in the first place with this proposal. So we are coming up in a few years. In fact, it's actually this year, starting in August of 2024, we're coming up on the bicentennial anniversary of a grand tour that the Marquis de Lafayette, the French Revolutionary War general, made across the United States in 1824. And the reason I reached out to you is because I have a partnership with a foundation up in New York that is called the William G. Palmore Foundation, and together we've been memorializing all the stuff that Lafayette made, as long as we have primary source newspapers available to support the claim that he was indeed in a given town. And I found recently an article that was mentioning he made stuff in Dalton, Massachusetts. And so we just wanted to reach out and offer a possibility of collaborating. We do have an application process to secure the funding, so I can't really commit to the outcome at this point of the application. However, I'm just here to see if we can collect the materials necessary to move forward with this, which is basically an approval letter from the landowner where the sign would be placed if it's approved. So I suggested to the town, or I sent some documentation with a location along the main street. And, it's pretty straightforward. The marquee came on June the 13th, 1825 through your town. And we have some signs already in your area, including one in Pittsfield. We have 135 markers all over the United States. So we think it's a great anniversary coming up. We think that if there's the data available, I think Dalton should be included on that Lafayette Trail, absolutely. And I just wanted to reach out, make that proposal, and in the name of Franco-American relations and the historical ties that unite our two countries, I think it'd be a great addition to your town if you would be willing to accept that donation, provided, of course, that it gets through the application process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. And I see we have a packet here explaining what you just said, as well as the location on a Google map, the exact coordinates.
Yes, we were supplied with coordinates, and I plugged them into Google Maps to give you that sheet.
Yep, so this is essentially coming up Main Street, right on the left after the cemetery,
Yeah.
before Crozier's Garage, is what I see marked here. Okay?
I mean, I'm not familiar with the town. I just thought that this looked good. It looks like it has a nice visibility, and I thought it would be a good starting point. I mean, you're welcome to pick a different location if you'd like. I just thought this looked nice based on my experience, and maybe with your blessing, we could move forward with that, or somewhere else if you'd like.
Well, I think that's, from my perspective, a fine choice of location, and we have a sample of what the sign would look like as well. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, that's a state highway. Do we have to get approval from Mass DOT to put that here?
I believe the group is used to working with state highway agencies and would do that work. Is that right, Julian?
Well, actually, we operate across 25 states, and in all honesty, if there's a way to keep the conversation between my nonprofit and the local government, it would be much more, I don't know what to say, maybe it would be easier as a process instead of involving the Commonwealth government. So typically when these conversations show up, we propose to see if there's a town right-of-way that you would have access to without asking permission from the state, or if you have another location like a town park that would be completely out of reach of the Massachusetts DOT, or that would free you from asking for the right to place that sign. So if there's a way that we can keep this conversation inside the sovereignty of your local government, I think it'd be easier for the process.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, if you look right across the street to Dalton CRA, I don't think we'd have a hard time getting them to agree to that. I think they'd be honored to have such a
Put it on there.
Yeah. Julian, right across the street, there's a Dalton Community Center, and I think that'd be a better location, and I think that would free us up from involving the state highway department.
Okay, and who owns the facility?
Dalton Community Center?
Dalton Community Recreation Association.
It's a nonprofit that provides recreation for the town. I'm sure they'd look favorably on it, and it would get probably a lot more visitors because it's much more easily approachable by foot.
We certainly don't want to pre-commit that location, but I think in this conversation, it seems worth reaching out to the CRA to gauge their openness and receptiveness to locating the Lafayette Trail marker on that side of Main Street, just inside their property.
So perhaps if you could approve the concept and have me work with Julian on the details.
We do have a representative from the CRA here. We do have a representative from the CRA here.
Relative representative.
Right.
Someone who can make a decision now?
No.
But yeah, I can talk to the executive director in a little while and just run a fire. I'm pretty sure
I'll make sure you have all the information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
send it to Allison.
Okay, send it to.
I think we
Allison.
preliminary approve it pending location.
Yeah, so if I could hear a motion for that?
Make a motion, we preliminary approve the marker for the Lafayette Trail. Commemorating the Revolutionary War hero General Lafayette's visit to our community during his farewell tour of the United States on June 13th, 1825, pending the location.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.
As you heard, location needs some more work, and Mr. Hutchison will be in touch.
Okay, I was going to ask if somebody is in touch. Excellent. Perfect. I will look forward to hearing from someone. Thank you very much for your attention to this matter. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thank
You
you.
as well. Okay. Next up, we have the recognition of Patty Ann Perico in the Berkshire Regional Transit Authority's annual report. Mr. Hutchison.
Yes, we were very pleased to see that in the annual report a Dalton resident was highlighted. All of us in Town Hall have experienced the energy of the advocacy that Patty has and her interest and knowledge, interest in and knowledge of the BRTA. She's an excellent advocate for the ridership of those who use the service in Dalton. And she has persisted over many years in items which have made the service better for the town. And she continues to do so. So we were pleased to see that she was given a recognition in the BRTA annual report, and we were just hoping that the select board could also recognize her as a strong advocate for the town.
Absolutely. So we have a printout of excerpt of the, is it the annual report? Yep. From BRTA?
Yes.
With the section recognizing Patty, and I'd like to read this if everyone could entertain that. So she's recognizes our long-term BRTA champion. She's a loyal BRTA passenger and advocate. And read on to learn more about why BRTA is so important to Patty and why Patty is important to BRTA. So if you'll indulge me, please. There are many people living in the Berkshires who depend on the BRTA to get where they need to go. Patty is one of them. BRTA's travel trainer, Julie Devine, says Patty knows all the routes and every bus number. Patty has been taking the bus since 1991. She depends on the BRTA to get around. When the buses aren't running on Sundays or holidays, Patty knows she'll be staying home. Wondering where Patty goes besides grocery shopping and appointments? She's an avid arts patron. She frequents the Berkshire Museum and the Clark Museum. She's been a member of both since 2015. Patty is a shopper. Throughout the year, she shops at Target and TJ Maxx, but one of her favorite shopping outings is going to tag sales in the summertime. She particularly loves the ones held at area churches. She's also a regular shopper at the farmer's market in the Sears parking lot. When Patty's riding the bus, you'll see her sitting in the front. Guess that's how she knows every BRTA operator. If you ask her about her favorite, she'll say, all of them. That probably comes as no surprise. The BRTA connects Patty to the things that make her life fulfilling. Patty shows up at transportation hearings, writes letters, and advocates for public transit. She isn't shy about changes she disagrees with. If you see Patty on the bus or out and about, please thank her for her work on behalf of all of the Berkshire residents who depend on the bus.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
I just talked to Patty last week, and she wanted to know if the little bus station, the little seat on Daly Avenue could be moved over by the ATM, because it's not, the bus doesn't run down that street anymore. And she's damn cold.
We have been working on that with her and BRTA for over a year now. It's a question of BRTA getting approval of landowners, and that has proved more challenging than we had thought. Really, the best place for it would be the old garage, and we spent some considerable time trying to have that happen, but because the site is for sale, I think the owner is unwilling to make that commitment at this point. So we are looking at that alternate address, and BRTA is reaching out to the owners to try to work with them, which has its own challenges.
Okay.
I personally spoke with Patty. She called me on the phone about a year ago when they reassigned certain equipment to this route. They used to have a larger bus, and they reassigned a smaller bus to the route. And she was none too pleased with that change, and she made that very clear to me. And I found, getting to know her a little bit, she not only told me about that, but other things as well. And it was a wonderful conversation, getting to know Patty a little bit better through that process. So thank you, BRTA, for recognizing Patty, for her advocacy and support of the public transit in the area. And I hope the citizens, residents of Dalton, if they do see her out and about, aren't shy, and certainly try to say hi to her and thank her for her advocacy for public transportation. Thank you, Patty Aranquiata. And we now have Mr. Diver in attendance, and I'll relinquish the chair position to you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Thanks. Sorry for being late. Number 9. All right, acceptance of a $2,000 grant to Dalton Free Public Library from Catherine and Winthrop Crane 3D Charitable Foundation. If I could have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the grant from the Catherine L.W. and Winthrop Crane 3D Charitable Foundation in the amount of $2,000 awarded to the Dalton Free Public Library.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Could I have a motion to open as the Sewer Commission?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. I guess Mr. Hutchinson.
Yeah, this is the standard bill that we send out to Hinsdale. It takes a vote and the Sewer Commission to sign it, which is what's before you now.
I have one question, out of curiosity, but any questions from the board? Ms. Hutchinson, do you know, I just don't know the math here, but the sewer bill connected to, I'm confused, connected to Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the economic impacts we've had recently? Has that been taken into account in the billing process or with Hinsdale? How does that kind of connect?
Pittsfield bills Dalton for the entire amount. Dalton then bills Hinsdale for the amount that comes into Dalton, and we have a meter at that point.
We have a meter at that point?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so it's metered.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the bill as presented?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Sewer Commissioner's warrant to collector sewer accounts for fiscal year 2024 for the town of Hinsdale.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries.
And I believe there's a copy of that in the sign.
Okay, motion to close the sewer commission.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to close, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Thank you. Number 11, Traffic Commission recommendations. We received 2 letters, which should be in our packet. First one we'll take up is the request for an engineering study for traffic patterns for the senior center during voting. So we received this on December 11th, and it's from Bill Droshin, the Traffic Commission Chair. The Traffic Commission voted unanimously to request that a traffic study be undertaken to suggest signage and traffic patterns around the senior center during the voting that will be taking place in this location. It has been observed that many vehicles will be using Glennon Ave that has blind corners and hills that restrict movement into and out of Glennon Ave. A police officer will likely need to be stationed at this intersection. Also, to look at the bottleneck that can occur at the Carson Ave light. With this traffic study, we'll need a suggestion on the size and locations of temporary signage for this operation. If you have any questions, please contact the Traffic Commission or myself. Any questions? So this is really coming to us because we have, through town manager, the fund then to do the traffic study, right? So this approval would then fund that traffic study.
I hope we do. I don't have any idea how much a study of this scope takes to fund, but I believe that I would have enough in the engineering account for.
So do we want to table this and come back with the estimated cost? Or just approve the idea?
I think approving the idea and having me work to implement it would be
Yes.
appropriate.
Okay.
I can't guarantee that it's going to happen by the March election.
Sure. Maybe we make that clear back to the Traffic Commission? To approve it? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the recommendations of the Traffic Commission in conducting a traffic study at the senior center location for town voting.
For a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Second one we have is regarding parking near Pine Grove Park. And dear Select Board and Town Manager, this is dated December 10th, 23. At the August 9th, 23 meeting, the Traffic Commission voted to forward a letter suggesting changes to parking around Pine Grove Park. It has been suggested that trees along High Street be transplanted and dead trees cut down as the trees that are in place have overgrown. Also in this area and along Carson Ave, establish markings for diagonal parking so that more cars can be parked in this area. Establishing a walkway from 3rd Street along the center of the park to High Street that will allow for movement to the various fields at this park. If you have further questions, please contact the Traffic Commission or myself for further information. Okay, so they're suggesting changes.
Yes, and what I would suggest is that I work with the tree warden to assess the trees and the parking situation and come back with a plan.
Okay, so table until that time?
I'm sorry?
Table it till that time, or?
We could, or I could just take your direction to work with. Yeah, I will work with the traffic warden on this one. Tree warden, sorry.
Yeah, tree warden, yeah. I think the first suggestion, if we can transplant the trees, that would be wonderful. But the idea of that establishing that diagonal parking is great. I do like that idea. The idea, the second recommendation, establishing a walkway from 3rd Street along the center of the park to High Street to allow for movement to the various fields of the park. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but just curious, what that would look like.
Yeah.
And what costs would be associated with that change? What's the plan, I suppose? That's a very broad recommendation, but specifically, I'd like to know what does the change really look like? What are the costs of various options, different surfaces? I don't know.
What about if we take this and defer this recommendation to town manager and come back with a final recommendation as you evaluate?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That sound good? So no action by the board and just defer to town manager for now?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, number 12, recommendation for direct local technical assistance fund.
So unfortunately, our town planner can't be with us this evening.
So you want to table that to next meeting?
Unfortunately, we need to get back to BRPC before the next meeting.
Okay.
So this is the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission gets money from the state every year for a direct local technical assistance program. And this year, they can have various kinds of focus. This year's focus is on housing. And we all know there's tremendous interest in the housing right in the lot next to us over here. And we had a preliminary, some preliminary work done on the sort of current restrictions that are in place and what could be put in there if we wanted to put in additional units or smaller units, what kinds of zoning changes might be needed to do that. This proposal would focus on that that parcel. That parcel would be at the top of people's mind, but we wanted to have it be a little bit broader than that, to look at, and you have the proposed submission here, that all of the BRPC, materials. So these, the first page of this is the proposed answers to the main question: what do you want to do with this money? And this would be for a calendar year, and if it were successful, the project scope would be, first, working with the planning board to further the goal of increased housing in Dalton. I mean, looking at our current bylaws, seeing what's allowed, what's not allowed, we just passed the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which was intended to increase housing in town, especially with the so-called mother-in-law apartments, or, if one of the main challenges is seniors in houses that may be too large for them. This would allow them, the ADU bylaw would allow a building which would then let them rent a larger building, providing both a stream of income and also some stability in terms of the community. So that was one step in this direction. So there may be other ways that we can look at the current zoning and say, well, here are some options for changing it. Then the planning board, if and when they found those options, they would draft zoning amendments, hold the public hearings that they would have to in order to bring any zoning changes to town, and bring them to town meeting for approval. So the desired results, as we say, is the first is having the town get more comfortable with adding housing and changing the zoning to allow for more diverse housing. We heard the cottage court idea brought before us earlier, which is more but smaller houses that wouldn't cost as much to build. Backing up just a little bit under the project background, in the middle he says, one of the incomplete high priority action steps from the master plan was to review the zoning bylaws to ensure they allow for the development of a range of housing, including middle income housing, first time homeowner, family, and senior housing. So obviously we all know the demographic is getting older, typically fixed income at that point. So interested in options that are not as expensive as the buildings, the houses that developers prefer to build these days, because they can make more profit So, keeping that in mind, that's, the current zoning may or may not allow additional housing. And we need to figure out how that might happen. And then also assessing what zoning and housing options would be the most palatable to the residents of Dalton. That's the second desired result.
I think that's already been answered, though.
Yeah, we voted to have, when we tore that building down, we voted to put 5 building lots there and an extra parking lot here for the senior center. And anything doing to that has to go to a town vote.
This has been debated,
Well, yeah,
discussed.
all of this would obviously have a lot of input to it.
We've already had a lot of input for it.
Well, and again, it's not just for that particular.
But no,
person.
you reference it, right, focusing on,
Yeah.
but not limited to a parcel of 121st Street.
Yeah, but not limited to that.
Right, but you
So-
specifically referenced 121st Street. I can't support anything like that. The residents of the town voted to spend $1 million with that school down, knowing or being told that there were going to be single-family lots put in that house, in that area. That's what was debated and discussed.
Okay, well, we can take that section of the, that citation out of the proposal.
I'm not in favor of doing anything over here until we get Walker Brook resolved.
We can't do anything until we get Walker Brook.
No.
I don't even support any of this right now.
Yeah.
You don't have my support on any funding for this.
There's no match required from the town of Dalton for this assistance? No. Okay. Well, with the goal of analyzing Dalton's current housing and analyzing the current zoning laws to see where we could potentially make improvements or changes to help create more housing sustainably in our town, I don't really see a downside to getting the technical assistance. It's not committing the town of Dalton to doing anything. At the end of the day, the voters decide at town meeting what happens. This is merely a proposal for direct local technical assistance from the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission to help us.
Yeah, we can't beat around
We
the
can
bush.
change the proposal if we think that that's the issue.
We're beating around the bush, because that's exactly what this is about. It's about this piece of property.
Well, it says, yeah,
Well,
correct.
You can put a period after community in the first line and delete
Strike.
everything except the last sentence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I could just not support it altogether.
I don't see a downside to it, but I understand, your concerns, but I still can't see a downside. It's not committing the town to making any changes to zoning by any means. It's analyzing and doing research and providing technical assistance to see what we could do, what's possible.
Just a devil's advocate a little bit. We kind of go back to, was it 2015-ish that vote took
Yeah.
place?
Yeah.
So 9 years ago. And within that 9 years, not only, across the country, but certainly here locally, Berkshire County, housing has become an issue for a lot of different demographics. And one of those demographics is certainly our senior population. And as it stands today, with the zoning bylaws, as I understand it, we would not be able to put in smaller homes for seniors or things of that nature because our bylaws do not allow it. We have no option but to do the single-family lots as decided back in 2015. So if we don't explore options in zoning bylaws, we have no options to bring back to town, and we will be moving forward with a single-family home development and not being able to pause and possibly look at different strategies that address housing needs, but still probably meet the goal and objective of a single-family homes. They're just a different style single-family home. But we can't do that different style single-family home because our bylaws restrict us from doing so. So this technical grant would allow us, so maybe we could even limit the grant to say, let's look at our senior housing strategy as an option or something of that nature. But right now, if we don't do that, then we are limited to, based upon our bylaws today, to single family, and the vote back in 15, we're limited, we're limiting ourselves to single family homes, which is also okay. But these would be bigger homes and higher cost homes. And may or may not be affordable for folks. I don't know what the answer is, but they would be larger footprint homes, because it'd be five?
That's fine, yeah.
Five is the minimum. And so it's good for the tax rolls, certainly, right? But, you know, so that would just be my devil's advocate kind of comment on that. But I do understand the commitment that this town made when the residents took that vote to spend $1 million to demolish high school or middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we got rid of everything from community to the last sentence, that takes out all mention of that parcel.
Yeah, because it's not really enough the focus of here, it's the focus of our bylaws to be able to do things.
Yeah,
So for example, you know, some families have big open fields of land, maybe they want to develop at some point. And they would be limited to develop based upon the bylaws of today.
Correct.
Right? But if they had different options, maybe they want to develop differently. So it's not a bad exploration, it's not going to change the decisions of the past. But if we strike out the focus, I think that clarifies.
I'm good with it if we strike that all out. Now, to address Mr. Strout's comment, and I will note that, you know, this isn't, discussion of this parcel is not on the agenda tonight, it's just the technical assistance, which, the way it was framed, is tying in, it is mentioning this parcel as priority.
Exactly, which is another issue, because I think if this parcel was brought into, was listed on the agenda,
as an agenda item.
I think that we would have,
Yeah.
there would have been quite a turnout here tonight.
Now, I will say, ultimately, the town already made a decision, the town voters, on this parcel. So I don't see us doing anything different than what the town already decided, what town meeting decided at that time. Now, it has been some years since that vote, but I don't think that should matter at the end of the day. We haven't been able to develop that because of the inability of the drainage to handle the Walker Brook outflow. So once that's addressed, I think we can move forward with what town meeting had decided. That being said, if there's other ideas that are, you know, sustainable and not, large-scale housing, which I think everyone's certainly opposed to, and we could look at that, but it's not on the agenda, so I think we should just focus on the proposal for the technical assistance to help Dalton plan for some sustainable housing growth by looking at our zoning bylaws and providing some ideas and options to consider.
And so let's, if I can propose amending the purpose. So back to Ms. Hutchinson's comment, period after community, strike everything after that, all the way down to the last sentence, right?
Yep.
So public record would show that we're not specifically talking about this parcel, we're talking about zoning bylaws in general. And if we do have any other discussion around the specific parcel, we certainly put it on the agenda and have a broader community.
This is just leaving a bad taste in my mouth, because obviously this is the proposal, because it says it right on the paper, that's what the proposal is. We can scratch out whatever we want, this is obviously the town manager's proposal.
I suggest one more.
We know we're not gonna touch this property for building anything for about another 3 years, at least. Because we have Walker Brook, which we know from the estimates is gonna be $4 million in rent, which we have a 25% match requirement, that's $800,000, $900,000, right?
I think it's $5 million.
$5 million, so it's $1 million commitment. So we have another $1 million to put into the pool or to the kitty to address the flooding.
That's assuming we get a 75%, right?
Assume, that's best case, right?
Yeah.
So $1 million in. So we're probably not gonna be doing any development there for at least the next 3 years. Because that request for $1 million is not on this annual town meeting's article for money asked.
Right, because we don't have.
We don't have the grant, right? So another year out, that's,
We don't have the final engineering, we have preliminary engineering, and the cost estimate of $5 million, 1.5
Right.
from the town. And I am going to propose money for the development of a grant proposal by an engineer to do the cost benefit
Right.
analysis and all of that
Right.
complex work that's necessary for the grant.
And to Mr. Strauss' point, it does leave a bad taste, I think, in the community's ayes if we're focused on 120, which I think the intent of this proposal, to Mr. Strauss' point, was the intent, but it's not what we need.
Well,
Right.
I have always wanted an update of the last housing study that was done
Yeah.
and an overall look at the situation. I had understood that there was, interest in this parcel. I may not have appreciated the commitment to the vote taken 9 years ago and exactly how that happened.
Little Dalton history for us.
Well, I would add one more suggestion in the the first sentence of priority funding areas. Planning ahead for housing and planning ahead for growth, allowing for sustainable housing development. The word substantial does not, it does not seem to line up with certainly our current zoning bylaws. And I can't see Dalton voters supporting substantial increases in housing development necessarily, but I'm not going to put words in their mouth either. But I think in terms of how we frame it for technical assistance, I'd say more sustainable development, substantial.
These were choices in the grant application, so I would just delete that.
I see, okay. It was a select, gotcha. Understood. There was no intention behind that other than selecting the options they gave you?
Yeah. It's a fairly narrow
I understand.
program.
If I may just take a question.
Am I allowed to speak?
Just state your name and your address.
Sure, okay. Mark Rebutis, I live at 36 Glen Ave. So I guess my question is, so we're on number 12. So recommendation for direct local technical assistance funding. Conversation is progressed. What is the plan or the process to make it very clear to the townspeople as to whether or not rezoning or repurposing or housing on this lot is discussed?
If we do rezone it, it's not just for this lot, it's for the entire town.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to.
Well, it could be a special overlay too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a widespread zoning change,
Okay.
but continue.
I guess my question is how is it clear in the agendas moving forward that if that lot is discussed or the plan for the lot is discussed, it's clear in an agenda item?
You will see the detail. That's one thing we try and do.
I think there'd be triple the people in here.
Yeah,
that would
you'll see detail on the agenda specifically for that because Mass State law requires us from an open meeting law to be specific in the agenda.
Okay.
So you'll see that detail.
And-
Yeah. And let me finish. And if you go to our town website, you could register for the email link when the agenda gets updated. That you receive that email, so you'll see that detail.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we table this.
Table or send it back for corrections?
Don't table
It's going to come back the way it is if we table it.
Well, tabling it won't happen, because there's a
We're
deadline.
going to pass the deadline.
Okay. There's a motion to table, there's no second needed, so that item is tabled, going on to the next.
If I can just have one further response to the speaker.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Hutchinson.
The discussion would mostly happen at the planning board, because they're the ones who cover zoning. So this would be something that happens within the planning board.
Okay.
Not necessarily. The question is the
Well,
use of this
it comes-
land and decisions. That happens here.
Yeah, well, you would put their zoning recommendation on the warrant or not,
Yeah, the zoning, yes, but what we do with this parcel will happen here. Because right now, the commitment is that we stay firm with what was approved by the voters in 2015. If that changes, you'll see on the agenda us to have a conversation, residents can participate, and then based upon if we decide to do something different, we have to go back to town meeting. And that's where the formal vote would occur. So, and then go from there. So it's a process, and that's why I'm kind of thinking 3 years out.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make sense? Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
And I lived it in 2015, so.
Okay, so, okay. I was here, but I wasn't too far to reach at that point, but yeah.
The reason why 121st Street, the lot came up tonight is because it's part of the request for the technical assistance that's on the menu, or the agenda. It's part of that application, and it is the main objection of this board to include that. We don't want that on there, but it was tabled, so.
Well, it was tabled, you can have, there's not supposed to be any debate or discussion, there's to be a vote, and maybe it doesn't get tabled.
You don't need to vote for a table.
Sure you do. There's no debate or discussion, but you gotta have a vote whether it gets tabled or not.
Okay, we can vote.
All right, second for discussion purposes.
Okay, motion, and second, on the table, discussion.
Again, I'll reiterate what I said before, I don't see the downside to getting technical assistance to study our housing needs in town. Irregardless of the lot that was included in the application, so that's where I stand. I'd be in support of the application once, though, any specific parcels are removed from the application, so.
And I'll just, it was an incomplete high priority action step from the master plan under housing. They're funding housing this year.
Yeah.
We came up with this in order to move it forward. I have no objection to removing the parcel.
I think the mere fact, when I said that this will leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, that we are looking to fund researching and doing into this property out here, different housing options. Like this gentleman said out here, had this been noted that we're going to be discussing this or looking to to approve, looking into getting funding for this or doing technical assistance or any of that stuff.
Then we should have rejected the BRPC review of that parcel in general, because that's exactly what the focus was from BRPC. That's what was presented to us last time.
Well, yeah, and that was done with some remnants of last year's DLTA funding that ended December 30th, and they said, do you want to look at anything? And I knew that that was an item of interest, so my mistake to have asked them to look into that.
I wouldn't call that a mistake, but in any case, motion.
Is a motion, is a second, further discussion? I'd be okay with the application, as long as we scratch off a specific item and look at it from a general zoning bylaw assessment for the town. And then that just informs us as we kind of look at the different situations that occurred over the last 9 years. And I think it's a good opportunity to explore it. And it's not saying we're making any different decision at all. Otherwise, our zoning laws stay as they are, and we go from there.
Which is just as well, and it could very well be an outcome after the study's done as well. It doesn't mean we change. So yeah, I'm with Mr. Diver, and I won't support the tabling.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote.
Okay. Roll call.
Dan Asco,
That would be a no for me.
Joe Diver,
Go to the other folks first, come to chair last, please.
Mark Strout,
Yes.
Robert Bishop,
No.
Joe Diver.
No. Okay, motion fails. So we're back to, so the table fails, so we're back to that agenda item. Is there a recommendation or motion what to do with this?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the application for direct local technical assistance to Berkshire Regional Planning Commission as amended, including only the first sentence in section 3 purpose, striking the remaining sentences in that paragraph, and in priority funding areas, striking substantial and substituting sustainable.
Is there a second?
Yeah, and that's not the whole first sentence, but the first sentence up to the word,
Community.
through the word community.
Community, yes.
Okay, there's a motion, second, discussion? Okay, hearing none?
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, roll call vote on this motion.
Mark Strout,
No.
Robert Bishop,
Yes.
Dan Asco,
Yes.
Joe Diver.
Yes. Okay, motion passes, so election before. 13, CBRSD Regional Agreement. Let me go and take a few minutes and give the board an update on this. So last time we had the regional agreement before us, this board took a vote, unanimous vote to get clarification around the preschool being added to the, do we have a regional agreement in the packet?
We do not have the entire regional agreement.
Give me a second.
I'll be right back.
Okay, so, so on the regional agreement, as the board knows, this came before us, and we took a unanimous vote regarding the preschool, because what's been updated in the regional agreement is that in section 1, type of regional school district, hereinafter sometimes referred to as district, shall be comprised of all grades, from pre-kindergarten through grade 12. The prior regional agreement was kindergarten through grade 12. So we wanted clarification on it because the current pre-K program of preschool is a fee-based service. So therefore, parents who put their kids in the preschool pay a fee for that service, except for students with special needs, which get the coverage for that service. And comments went back. It was a little bit of a delay of getting responses back, but we did. There is a ad hoc committee that has been working on this regional agreement for well over 12 months. And our concerns were not brought forward through the ad hoc committee yet, because they have not met yet, and there's been no call for a meeting.
They've met since the agreement was agreed upon.
They met since
They have
not met since our request for, okay. So through the chair of the school committee, he engaged Mars, which is a consultant group, which has been helping the school committee and that ad hoc committee work through the regional agreement. And the question we asked was more or less clarify within the regional agreement that pre-K is a fee-based service. Because the way the regional agreement is structured, and let me back up for a minute, as we all, just for foundation, this agreement is not with us, with the school committee. This agreement is with all 7 towns, and has the operating parameters of how the school committee and the district will operate. So we're asking for clarification to put pre-K or put language in. And Mars responded on January 17th. CBR School Committee has requested that we respond to the following concern from a member. We got clarified that it wasn't a member, but rather the full board here with a unanimous vote. And that how our concern relates to work over the past year to update the district's regional agreement. The modification is to clarify within the regional agreement that preschool services are a fee-based service paid for by the parent, guardian, and does not impact the operations of capital budgets for the member town. Mars also included in their letter, first, it is appropriate that the regional agreement states that the district is a pre-K to 12 regional school district, as this allows the district to offer programs to children in all these grade levels and it leaves the school committee with the kind of discretion it needs to manage programs in the years ahead. That discretion should not be left up to the school committee because this is the operating framework for the 7 towns. And the 7 towns have not relinquished this agreement to the school committee to make those decisions. Currently, the special education for preschool age children consists of integrated preschool classrooms and provision of specialized services to age-appropriate qualifying students. No argument around special education. While the fees and grant funds mitigate the cost of the preschool programs, the operating budget supports a portion of the total cost for those students with special needs. And I added that as we're thinking through this. the district's legally mandated, blah, 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 blah. So Mars' response, in my opinion, and I commented on this, and you see it in the document, my comment is that if we leave it up to the school committee with their discretion, we need to clarify how we operate within this agreement. This is the issue that happened because the formal agreement that's on file with DESI is 1958. However, there's one online with CBRSD, I think it's from the 90s. And this was the Hinsdale issue when we had a school vote because the regional agreement was not clear. I'm all for preschool, don't get me wrong, but you gotta make a decision one way or the other. But to leave it up by policy, the school committee can decide at some point, and we might accept this, they might decide at some point to offer preschool. And by policy, they move from a fee-based service to now we're gonna offer it. Don't know if that would ever happen, or it might be forced by state law, which is a different issue, but this is a concern that we brought forward. So the question for the board is, do we still have the same concern, and Mr. Peters is here tonight to answer any questions. I believe that the regional agreement must be clear within the 7 towns, and the 7 towns has not relinquished that discretion to the school committee, as suggested by Mars. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
So in reading the response from Jay Berry, Steve Hemman from Mars Consulting Group, I was satisfied with their response to our request. I don't feel that it needs to necessarily be in the agreement, but it could be part of policy. And the reason why I say that is this. The district is legally mandated to provide these services, and its fiscal responsibility is a legal requirement. So the state is mandated.
Not for pre-K students who are not special needs. It is not mandated by state law for pre-K with non-special needs. Special needs, yes, it's mandated.
Well, then what they're saying is incorrect.
That's right.
Okay.
So, do you agree with the letter, or what's your?
Well, I don't know that we need it in the agreement. Personally, I don't see.
So if the school committee wants to have pre-K programs, they don't have to come back to the towns for authorization.
They do for their budget.
They do for the budget, but they
Which will
don't
include those.
But they
those
don't have it
lines.
for the programs.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I mean, what do we want to do here?
I think that we need to have language in there that specifies that we support we support pre-K, but from the fee-based service. Now, further in the letter, on the back, it is not realistic to manage a preschool program, parent fees alone, blah, 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 blah. So, again, the regional agreement should reflect that. It would be possible for the regional agreement to include language regarding the practice of asking parents of typical learners to pay a fee. However, we do not recommend doing so. This language would make it more difficult to manage. This language would make it more difficult to make program adjustments or cost adjustments in the future because a regional agreement would need to be amended. See, Mars is basically suggesting to allow a school committee to have that flexibility. This agreement should be amended, is my opinion. What I'm going to ask the board, if the majority of the board says, no big deal, okay, we're done. But what I would be asking the board is I would like to go to the chairs of each town and make sure that they understand this. And if they don't have a concern, that's okay. But the regional agreement intent is between the 7 towns. The school committee needs a vote and approve it, no doubt, but the agreement is how we operate.
Mr. Dipper?
Not yet. Any questions from the board or thoughts?
I'd like to know if the school committee stops on this.
Okay. Mr. Peters? Yes.
What's the question?
I'd like to know your perspective on this. How do you view this?
So, I did send a note kind of responding to the comments on this. This is essentially what's the change is because in 1958, we weren't supplying preschool. We currently are, and it is impacting the operational budget, and it changes every year as it impacts the operational budget because of special needs and also peer groups that go in with those special needs. So it's already been impacting the operational budget, so talking about that is kind of, it's already happening.
For special needs students.
And for other students as well. There's peer group, there's peer students that are in tied with those special needs students, so they have, both are in there. It's fee-based depending on people's income levels. Some people, their income levels are lower, they don't have to pay the fees in those peer groups and in the special needs pieces. And in special needs, depending on the special needs that's there, if there's a threshold, if it's above a certain amount of money, we don't get refunded for that. If it's not above a special, even though there's special needs, we don't get refunded for it. So it's been impacting operational budget. It will continue to impact operational budget forever, pretty much, unless they change the laws and change that. So the change is nothing more than reflecting what we're doing now and bringing it up to date to the state law. It's not changing any of our policies or how we're running the district or any of that. It's strictly, this should not even be a controversial issue. It's strictly saying, because in 1958 we were doing a bunch of things. Berkshire Trail School doesn't exist anymore. So there's a ton of things needing to be changing in the regional agreement, which is why instead of doing it one piece at a time, we went to Mars and said we need to redo the whole thing because we're way behind on state laws and all that stuff. So basically, we have contracted Mars to redo the entire regional agreement, working with the 7 towns. One of the big impetuses was the vote from the school, and that was really started this going. But essentially, we're just bringing this up to date to both state law and reflecting what the school district is doing right now. That's the whole.
So what prevents the district from adding more preschool programs besides the fee? So why can't the regional agreement specify that there's a fee-based service?
Well, one, I don't think you want to tie the district's hands to that, because if you go for a grant funded for preschool, say and I know they're doing it right now, they're going for big grant funding for expanding preschool, because we know preschool is very positive results on student performance. Probably 10, 15 years from now, I don't know, 5 years from now, it's going to be mandatory anyway. But for right now, it would be fee-based. But we get grant funding for that. We get some grants for that. If we tie this district's hands to a certain amount, we're saying you can't impact operational budget. I mean, then why go for grants and that sort of thing?
Well, what prevents you from opening the doors to more preschool programs besides the fee-based model today?
It would be us coming to it would impact our budget, for the annual budget, and we'd say, oh, we'd be adding teachers, and then, so it would be impacting the towns in that way, and the towns have to approve the school budget. And if the towns say, we don't want this in the school budget, and they don't pass the budget, we have to cut things, and it might be that. But I mean, that's no different than any other
we'd be cutting things from the core education system to then support the preschool or vice versa or something of that nature.
I mean,
I think the issue I have is that Mars is basically saying it's easier for the school committee not to amend the regional agreement, which you should amend the regional agreement. That's the purpose of the agreement.
It may be that you're saying take the simple route. Look how hard it is to change the regional agreement.
No,
right now.
And I would say that school committees over the years have failed to update the regional agreement as it went through, right? So 1958, there's another copy on the website, which is a completely different year, right? So I think it needs to be really crisp and clear, is my opinion,
Have any other towns expressed concern with this language?
No.
Not one comment? Okay.
There's been a lot of good feedback from the lawyers, from different lawyers, from all the towns. Nobody, I mean, quite frankly, because this is what we're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, we're already funding these programs.
It's already in operation.
Insofar as, you know, the infrastructure, the facilities, the teachers,
Okay.
and there's some grant funding that supplements and there's fees that supplement, but there's part of the district budget that does support
Yes.
pre-K program.
Yes.
And who's to say that,
Yeah.
you know, pre-K is any less important than, you know, any other program that the district is running? I mean, I think they're all equally important, so I don't have an issue at this point based on the feedback or the response that I got personally. So I would support accepting things the way they were presented, but that's where I stand on it. Maybe the rest of the board.
Yeah, so if you're a resident in the town and you look at the regional agreement and you see that we support pre-K programs, but there's no clarification of regional agreement, is there any legality that can make an argument that I need to get free preschool services for my child, no matter what the policy says? I don't know.
Well, that's a question for legal. I can't answer that. And my understanding is that our legal counsel did review the agreement or is in process. Have we gotten a response from them?
No, because there's a conflict.
No, there's
Okay.
legal.
Yeah.
Sure. Mr. Lecter.
There are about 40 regionals in Massachusetts, I believe. And I've looked at a number of them. Not one has language that's any different than what is in front of you right now. And believe me, they all have the same concerns that you might have. Just because we're authorized to do something doesn't mean we will do something. Budget has already been mentioned. You have to come back for more money. You can make your wishes known at that time. You also have a large, in our case, a large school committee that represents the public, whether the public wants it or not. This really should be a non-issue. I mean, this is a pro forma issue, really.
Okay. Board? So, we accept the regional agreement as presented. Any issues on preschool? Is there a motion to accept the regional agreement?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the regional agreement as presented, and I want to also, in the motion, thank the Rich Peters and Mars Consulting Group for the responses to our concerns.
Is there a second? Motion second, discussion. I ask for a roll call vote.
Mark Strout,
Yes.
Robert Bishop,
Yes.
Dan Esco,
Yes.
Joe Differt.
No. Okay. Motion passes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
FY25 budget presentations. Ms. Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, I would like to propose moving the first bullet under the next item, the preliminary budget discussion of the operating budget, to help give context to the particular budget review.
Okay. If there's no objection.
None here.
Okay.
And a brief introduction. I started taking notes and then I thought I'd better write them down and hand them out. I'll just read this that I was intending to do anyway, but you haven't done it. This is a reminder that the draft budget that was sent out and you see in front of you has some conservative estimates built into it. These include worst-case insurance numbers, no increase in property value, and a 3% rise in school spending.
Which we actually asked for 2.5, not to be above 2.5.
Right, so this is a conservative estimate as a bad case scenario. The draft budget does leave us another $167,610 short of an even excess levy capacity. It would obviously be best if we could have that be level or even get some more excess levy capacity. One main driver of the high budget has been insurance. I'm pleased to say, though, that I believe our actual cost for health insurance will be closer to $837,000 rather than $868,000. Still about a 10% rise, but not the 14% we were expecting. The excess levy capacity then would drop another $136,781 as opposed to $167,000. This would still leave us with a 5.9% increase in the operating budget, well over the 10-year average of about 3.17%. The average tax rate would rise 4.7%, which would be about $252. Please note that the property valuation is conservatively estimated as the same as this year. If property values rise 1%, the average tax bill would rise $185, or 3.5%. And if there were a 2% rise in property values, the average tax bill would rise $131, or 2.4%. I say this in part to help us all get a better handle on the scale of the problem, which I see as relatively small. Yes, we should try to trim $136,781 from the budget at this point. But I'm having difficulty finding easy sources at this early stage. I have provided a list of the budgets with the greatest percentage rises for your consideration. These are based on the preliminary budgets I received as part of the new process. So that's the introduction that I wanted to give to the operating budget. And I have, so the operating budget is this one with purple on it here. The items in green or teal, I guess, are ones that we have now more than the preliminary estimates for. All the items in black are the preliminary estimates for those budgets. And again, what you see before you has a 14% increase in the insurance costs, as opposed to a 10% increase that I now believe is much more likely after having been to the Mass Municipal Association conference. I do have the, after the possible money articles, this item is the one, I've taken out all of the accounts with the projected FY25 rise over the 10-year average rise as the target. So you can see what those are. And again, these have the old insurance numbers in them. It also has the wastewater treatment in it, which is, of course, expensive, but it is paid for by the sewer fee rather than out of the property tax. So just of the ones that you see, just want to quickly highlight the culture activities, which was slated to go up 364%. That is the result of proposing to fold the Dalton Day activities into the operating budget. That was paid for by ARPA funds last year. And this year, there are sponsorships that are being proposed. It might be worthwhile to wait another year before folding it into the operating budget and fund it through free cash instead, to allow the Cultural Council to find out what they're likely to be able to get for sponsorships. So rather than taking the maximum cost of that, it might be worthwhile to fund it outside of the operating budget until its funding is stabilized and we know what we can get for sponsorships. It might not be that hard to get the extra $9,000 that's projected to, that Dalton Day is projected to cost.
That costs $9,000?
I'm sorry?
That costs $9,000?
It cost a little bit less than that.
Closer to like 7,000 last year.
That was, yeah, that's last year's.
What was the cost?
The tent was quite a bit. Tables, chair rentals, musicians, generator, sound system.
Oh, we rented all that stuff.
Yeah.
We paid musicians, but they didn't
Yeah.
volunteer. Okay, I thought they were.
Yes.
That's all, okay, that would make
Yeah.
sense, okay. All right. Well, I'll bring my ukulele next time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm teasing, it was great entertainment. sure people enjoy it.
Some of the percentage rises are a little, again, a little misleading. The Conservation Commission is asking for one more position for their, to go to the annual conference, which is only $520.
On the cultural thing, just another thought, Tom, since we have some dollars left over as ARPA, if we
Yes.
fund it this year with ARPA, and then just kind of plan for sponsorships next year, or as we move forward, it's out of the budget, but it's still covered.
Yes, and I will be getting an updated ARPA spreadsheet that numbers to
We'll
you.
just make a note on this one.
Because we obviously have to get those
Yeah.
items committed this year.
Yeah, okay.
And committed does mean contracts signed for the work, as opposed to just allocated by the select board. So under my own budget, Slate requested to go up 5.4%. Aside from the regular projected salary rise, that includes a rise of 50% or another 4 hours a week for the new administrative assistant for the purpose of putting together that town email that the board was anxious to have more communication with the town. Newsletter, an email newsletter. So that extra money is put in there so that it wouldn't be taken away from the time that the assistant is spending assisting my executive assistant with her usual clerical duties.
Not so sure about that, but I don't prefer.
Well, that's a decision completely up to the board, but that would be, I'm just saying that's what it would be dedicated for.
How many hours a week?
I'm sorry?
How many hours a week?
Up to 12.
That would be an extra 4 hours,
Okay.
from 8 to 12.
Up to.
Yeah.
When did she start, when did that position start?
Just a few months ago.
Yeah, so we're already a few months and we're already asking for a 50% increase?
Well, it represents work that has been requested that we right now don't have the capacity for. So, you know, that was the newsletter that the board seemed enthusiastic about.
Yeah, I don't see extra 16 hours a month just for a newsletter.
No, it would be 4 hours. Right.
4 hours a week is 16 hours a
Yeah.
month for a newsletter.
Yeah, certainly would be needing more than that, but,
There's more to it than just a newsletter. A newsletter is like 2 hours worth of effort, it's not long. Once you get the template down, it's not long, you put the stories in. It's not a 16-hour edition per month, just for a newsletter. I would support that.
Okay.
There's got to be more meat to the bone on that one, but I'll defer to the board.
We can.
well, it's good to know what that number, the base,
Well,
that number is for now.
that's what it represents.
Yeah,
and,
we know.
You know,
Okay.
do what you want to do. We'll try to come up with some, granularity to that request.
So are we doing official budget review, or we're just doing summary? Sorry.
This is just going over a few of the things that were higher in cost.
I'd like the motion that we decline the extra 4 hours as presented this evening, and leave time to have to come back with more information.
Well, we'll actually be going over that budget in the next agenda item, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, tell me this.
And you can see, I can see the reason given column there. I won't go through them all now, just to save time, but those are the reasons for those particular rises. The health agent is also going up. The permitting software that we use now, we had a tablet on loan from BRPC over the next year. We would be buying our own tablet and having a software upgrade. I will let the health agent described the details of that if you want, but that is an expensive proposition. She maintains that it is still well worth the expense. So anyway, these are the ones that have the greatest percentage increase. I thought I would separate them out for you so you would see what I've been looking at in terms of, you know, do these budgets that are pretty large requests for, are they places that we can find savings? And, you know, there are some. But the target again is about $138,000 to have an even excess levy capacity.
On the town hall maintenance, what's the new cleaning service plus 3,000? I think I may just not be aware, do we outsource our cleaning service for the town hall?
Yes, that was something that the last building and grounds fellow instituted. This, our new building and grounds superintendent was not satisfied. I think there were a number of people who were not satisfied with the service that we were
Oh, so we
getting.
changed companies then?
Yeah.
And their costs are a little higher?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Tom.
So anyway, again, these are just the ones with a more or less extraordinary increase in the percentage of their budget that I thought I would draw to your attention.
Thank you. Any questions for town manager?
Thank you, Tom. This is helpful in terms of some of the greater percentage increases, but I do notice there's some bigger, maybe some other bigger dollar increases that don't add up as, that aren't as large a percent increase because the actual budgets are quite a bit larger.
Yes, and
So, you know, I want to make sure we address the
yes,
kind of the bigger dollar increases, maybe simultaneous to this or in addition, because I think that's important as well. And if we're trying to shave, if we have a target for what we want to cut or request be shaved, we'll have to look at those as well. Do you have those laid out here, or?
I do not.
Okay, that's okay.
I can do that for next
For
time.
next time, okay. Now, these bigger percentage increase ones on this sheet, are all these budgets here, or are they not?
No.
Okay,
No,
gotcha.
They're entirely separate.
What was
And
the, sorry, what was the cutoff here on this sheet, Tom, percentage-wise?
It was 3 point.
No, as far as percentage change, that made you put it on the sheet to go to the high level?
Yeah, I think it was 3.8%, which is actually not what it should have been. It should have been more like 3.2.
You get 9.2, treasurer, okay, treasurer, okay. Okay, got it, okay, all right. Sorry, I missed it, okay.
So, I think now we can go back to the number 14 and the budgets, the particular budgets, now that you have this sort of general overview.
Okay, so going back to 14. So we got 122, the select board.
Yes, select board, I took a little bit out of the other purchase services. That was put in when the board asked for an appraisal, and there wasn't anything in the budget. And I thought that the board might want to have some flexibility to ask for money to be spent on things, so I put it in. But it hasn't been used much, and I thought I would at least trim it, so it could conceivably come down a little more. I would leave something in it in case the board decides they want to spend money on something.
Sure. What could we,
I also,
we used it only for the appraisal last year?
I believe so, but it had to come from somewhere, and it
Yes.
was $6,500, so.
The appraisal was?
Yeah,
Oh.
that was for the Barton property.
I mean, we don't foresee needing to do something of that scope this coming year, I wouldn't think.
No,
Another
we
appraisal, for
didn't
example.
foresee the need to spend on the Barton property.
Well, yeah, but that matter's been dealt
Yeah.
with. I just, if that was more of a one-time expense, I fail to see the
Yeah.
reason to budget 5,000 in that account.
Right.
I mean, we could find 3,000 right now of the 130 something that we need to find right here and just cut it to 2,000.
Yeah, I'd like to throw it out there, but we should just freeze our salaries for this year, to this year's level, 2024 level.
No objection.
Oh, not raise our salaries?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Absolutely. Cut. I mean, well, should we take a vote? I mean, everyone seems to agree. Mr. Boyle's not in attendance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
All right, Mike, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we freeze our stipend to 2020, fiscal year 2024 rates.
A second?
Yes.
Motion second, discussion?
Just note that Mr. Boyle's not in attendance to voice any opinion on the matter.
We have a quorum.
I know that. I'm just
Yeah.
mentioning, we're talking about changing salaries without a member of the board present. That being said, I do support it.
And any, you know, it's fine to get rid of that other purchase services line item, so long as you don't ask for any money to be spent.
Let's finish this one first.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the salaries. We haven't voted yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, back to professional services or purchase services.
Yeah, I just, what was the history before the appraisal? I don't see it here.
There wasn't anything, and then I thought, well, if the board is gonna wanna spend money on stuff, I better give them some money to spend on stuff. So, that's how it started.
Well,
In this,
we gotta do our part, so I say we cut some from that. I can't see us, again, it was a one-time expense for that appraisal. There's no way we'll hit that amount. I can't foresee a situation that would require it.
One thing that I have not seen done here at all is sending out a town-wide mailing, either a mailing or a survey or something like that.
I thought we had a survey planned, like a postcard survey.
That wouldn't be in this budget, would it?
Well, it would be if it was a select board survey.
Yeah, well, town survey, I don't know why,
It'll be a
yeah.
town planner survey.
Yeah, I don't see that being a select board cost. I say we cut this in half.
Well,
Mr.
Just to comment on, you're not saying it being a select board. If the select board votes to spend money on something and it has to come out of another budget, then it won't have been planned for in that budget.
I understand that.
And that's one of the reasons that I provided the select board with a line where they could do something like that, so that it would not have to be taken from some other budget unexpected.
I'm not sure 5,000 would cover the cost of survey anyways, but
Well, it depends on how involved it was.
I think we're throwing a lot of hypotheticals around.
Yep. But anyway, that's why it's in there, and it's fine with me if you don't want to use it, but I would urge you not to ask somebody else to spend their money, if you wanted to spend money on something.
Well, I guess you've all heard from me on this matter. Does anyone else have anything to say about that line item, other purchase services?
We got a formal motion there.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we cut the other purchase services budget from 5,000 to 3,000.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay, and TA on the budget?
Yes, TA.
Okay, town manager budget.
Okay. I cut a number of things from the expenses, some professional and technical training.
May I pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
I know that Tony's here to talk about an issue, and maybe we want to move to that. Can we move that agenda item up?
I don't know, it looks like he's enjoying it.
I think we're going to talk about money articles around the charge stations.
I think it should be relatively easy to get through the next 3 anyway. And then doing the budgets under 20K will be easy after we
Okay.
do
Put
that.
this first
As long
in
as
there.
we're on this.
Okay. All right, let's finish it.
Yeah, so I took some things out of that. haven't used other purchase services, so if I have another purchase services, it usually is coming from the engineering 401. So I cut money out of that. I did have to add a little bit to the subscriptions, but it is still cut substantially from what it was the year before, which was paying for the hard copy books from LexisNexis instead of the online version. Took another 500 out of meetings, and I mean 250 out of meetings and another 250 out of employee relations. I haven't been using all of that up. However, I did add 400 for office equipment and furnishings. There were times when we had to buy a piece of furniture that I didn't have any money to buy it with, and that was not great for staff morale.
Well, great job cutting almost 1,500 from your expense budget. That's a 15% decrease. We do appreciate that. I think taxpayers do.
And then, of course, there's the question of
salaries.
Raising the interdepartmental clerk, and
Let's talk about that.
Whatever you want to do with that, I will make happen.
I think it's on you time to justify it.
Based upon your justification of the newsletter, I'm not approving that. It needs to be more wrapped around its interdepartmental clerk. So it's not an assistant to the assistant, but what are the other job responsibilities of this role to justify an additional 16 hours a month? So that works, that's not newsletter activity.
You want to talk
Yeah,
about the
I don't
position?
think the interdepartmental clerk title is really correct. It's like, she's an office assistant.
That's the historical
Yeah.
description of the term, of the position.
Our town report, the editor that we usually hire is no longer doing it. Kira has experience with computer programs, so she is actually doing the editing for the town report this year. So that, being her first year, that's taking a lot. She cover sheets all the invoices. She's been a really big help to me. So.
And that's what she was hired to do.
Yeah, for the 8 hours initially.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So she has taken on, new things besides helping me.
Yeah,
Report the newsletter to.
And I forgot the town report aspect of it, because that's actually a very substantial time suck during one part of the year.
Yeah.
It's not for the whole part of the year.
I'll honestly, because if we're looking at tight budgets this year, I think you're going to hear more challenges than not this year, as we kind of look through it. And 16 hours a month over 12 months doesn't pass the sniff test. However, she needs to work extra hours in the month of February through April to do the town report. And that's 10 hours total, fine, right? But
I think it'll be more than 10 hours.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to see more of a justification. I personally would like to see more of a justification.
It's certainly be open to splitting the difference to maybe 2 extra hours a week, and I know we're kind of splitting hairs, but I feel like we need to be more diligent this year with managing our cost increases.
Sure.
And try to not overshoot the excess levy capacity. Undershoot it, rather.
How about I bring it back with with enough granularity so that we know what you'd be getting for how many hours?
Yeah.
More exactly.
That is fair.
I'll be right back.
And the other two are level funded, reserve fund and legal counsel.
Yeah, okay. So town manager budget, you'll bring that back to us with more granularity on that 4-hour-a-week increase request?
Yeah.
And we're in budget, ask the question.
Yeah. Tom, your salary's budget will go up 4.27%.
Oh. Well, it shouldn't do that. I will check, I will revise that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so we'll table, we'll defer this one for further review.
I think that's probably a formula error.
Is it a formula error?
I think I've got to check that on, let's check that on the other ones too. Yeah. Okay, all right, bring that back, and thoughts on the other, on the level funded, reserve fund, and legal?
If you look at the history of expenditures in the reserve and the legal fund, we budget more than we usually spend in all cases, or we didn't necessarily budget 60,000 each of these years going back. Is that, I don't have the history of that, but based on what we've actually used, I mean, do we have to budget the amounts that we're budgeting for? Can we trim those a little bit for the sake of finding the cuts that we need to find?
Well, the 4-year average is 55,000. The 8-year average was only 41, so
So the
we
trend is
clearly have been using,
yeah.
Costs are going up, so per year turn it by 10 and go to 55.
Well, yeah, I mean, the 4-year average, 55,206, 43,174, FY23. I mean, again, we're trying to,
We thought this was going to go quick, Tony, so.
then we go to the reserve fund.
I mean, a couple thousand, it wouldn't necessarily be an issue from what I can tell in the trend in the history. That being said, you know, you can never predict the future.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, we decrease it by 5 and go to 60,000.
I'll second.
Oh, you talk,
The legal?
I'm on the reserve fund.
Oh,
reserve.
gotcha.
There's a second on that motion?
Yes.
65 to 60, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion, second, any discussion?
Discussion. So yeah, on this budget, I don't see the 4-year trend on this, but if I were to look at it, it peaked in FY '21, but has gone down since, and it's been lower in the last 3, wait, sorry, it's been going up. I'm looking at the wrong way. But I don't see an issue. I think 60,000 makes sense.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And TA for the reserve fund? Okay. Legal counsel? Sorry, no question.
So yeah, legal counsel.
Yes, sorry, that's where the 4-year average was 55.
That was 55,000 4-year average on the legal counsel. Peaked in FY '20 and has been going down since, with a slight uptick in '23. I think there's potential to trim a little bit there. We won't have the Barton property to deal with. That was a lot of back and forth, a lot of legal there.
55.
Tie it to the 4-year average.
Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reduce legal counsel budget from 60,000 to 55,000 for
For a second.
FY '25.
Motion, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Town moderator? Are we done with those? And we're going to go to, yep, now we're going to go to money
Again.
articles.
Yeah, so this would be under the list of possible money articles. For Tony.
Thanks for hanging in there, Tony.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen.
Tony's here to review the charger proposal.
I want to preface my remarks by saying that there are 2 errors.
Come on up so the folks at home can hear you. Yeah, grab a chair, get comfortable.
Hot seat. Okay, I just want to say, I want to preface my remarks by saying that there are 2 errors that I made, which one I corrected in terms of what you had before you, and that's Green Ridge Park, not Greenwich. And I apologize for the residents of Green Ridge Park. The other one is, I had stated that there are no public level 3 chargers, and there are. They're Tesla chargers. Tesla is proprietary, so I don't consider that a level 3 public charging station other than for Tesla. That may change down the road when there's an adapter for the Tesla plug. Okay, please interrupt me whenever I go through this. There's a lot of material here. Let me just step back and say that in terms of when I asked you last year to consider level 2 chargers, they are online, scheduled for installation at the CRA this coming spring. Monies were proposed, as you know, and you supported that. Thank you. And we will receive reimbursement through the Department of Environmental Protection and Eversource, 100% for the hardware. So of the $37,000, approximately $23,000 will be reimbursed to us upon completion. And that remaining, say $14,000 or $15,000, will be spread over 5 years in terms of software and hardware. So it's a minimal. And I know that ChargePoint, we are in the driver's seat in terms of charging whatever way we so see fit. There'll be 4 chargers there now. Originally, the proposal was for chargers of 9.6 kilowatts. There'll be 19.2 kilowatts. And so that's important because that keeps us under 100 kilowatts for a site, which means we will not incur demand charges. And demand charges are substantial in terms of when there's a surge of electricity. I won't get into that, but we will not incur demand charges. So now I'm coming to you with level 3 chargers. And as I said earlier, there are no public level 3 chargers other than Tesla. One outside of Lenox, one outside at Lee, and one outside of Great Barrington. There's 3 banks of Teslas.
And what's the difference between level 2 and level 3, sir?
Level 2 is going to be a slower charge. Level 1 is a trickle, 120 volt. Level 2 is 240 volt, maybe 25 miles an hour. Level 3 is 480 volts. That'll get you there, depending on the weather and your engine, say 30 to 40 minutes to bring a charge up to 80% of the battery capacity. It does not charge to 100%. It would damage the battery. So you get up to 80%. These are the ones that, and I own an EV, when I travel, I have to make sure that there's a level 3, like a gas station.
Yeah.
I have to charge up. I have to make sure that I'm going to be within that range. So my range anxiety, as it's called, doesn't go beyond.
Sure.
So that's the level 3. So I requested quotes from Universal, who won the bid last time around, and you see them before you. And there's a ChargePoint, a Flow, and a Zavora. And the quotes list 2 chargers for the ChargePoint and the Flow, and the Zavora is a 1-unit standalone dual-port charger. And you see the numbers listed out there in terms of the maintenance and service plans, which are mandatory over a 5-year period. That covers labor and expenses. What I want to point out again, as I did last year, I gave you a map in terms of an economic justice community. Dalton is an economic justice community, not for the entire town, and in particular, not for Greenridge Park. Any reimbursement that we would receive only will come at the level 3 station for ports 3 and more. And so if we had 2 ports at Greenridge Park, we would not receive any reimbursement. Thus, the cost for Greenridge Park level 3 chargers are substantially higher. For the other chargers, say at the Senior Center or at Pine Grove, as I've mentioned, we will receive, depending on the kilowatt, $40,000 a port to $80,000 a port. We would receive a substantial amount of money, as I've listed there, for the ChargePoint, the Flow, and the Zavora. So let's take all 3 sites, if I was to be optimistic. And you can see that for ChargePoint, we would have to allocate $440,000. The reimbursement would be $160,000 upon completion, the net cost being $280,000, and over the 5-year period, that's $56,000 a year. You have to remember, we set the rate as we see fit in terms of what we wish to charge. This is a public service. You won't be making any money, but you will certainly offset these costs. Flow is next. Flow isn't as popular as ChargePoint. ChargePoints are throughout Berkshire County at the level 2. Flow is out of Canada. It's a good station, as I understand. I have not had much dealing with Flow, unfortunately, in terms of asking them for input and guidance. Zavora was a 3rd quote, and the labor and maintenance there would be performed by Universal out of West Springfield. And that's why you see that quote there. That's a dual port, 150 kilowatt charger. The next option is 2, and in terms of economics, it's the most feasible or reasonable. And that's because we're receiving full reimbursement, less Greenridge Park. So again, charge point flow in Zervora, charge point, $293,000, a reimbursement of $160, net cost is $133 upon completion, and per year that comes out to $26,000 each of the 5 years. And finally, I did, for option 3, Pine Grove or the Senior Center in Greenridge, and again, the reimbursement is much less because there is no reimbursement for Greenridge Park. If indeed this was to pass with your approval and the town's approval, we're not looking at having this completed for at least 2 years. And you see there that there's a supply chain delay, a significant supply chain delay. The cabinet housing the electrical work is 6 months delayed, and the transformer, which would go into that cabinet, would be further delayed 40 to 52 weeks. So this is most definitely a long-term capital improvement. I want to say one last thing, and I'm going to be cautious here. I know Tom has asked me to look at other purveyors, and I have done that, and there are 2, one out of Connecticut and one out of New York State. The Connecticut representative wasn't particularly helpful. He wasn't too aware of the reimbursement in the state of Massachusetts, and I wasn't keen on his quote. However, the one out of New York, there's some math I still have to get to, and I'm researching. They've given me references to look at. They've done work in New York State, upper New York State. And I don't want to raise anybody's hopes, but the cost would be gratis for all 3 sites. And it sounds too good to be true. But they want an imprint. They want to have an imprint in Massachusetts. And I'm going to hopefully work with Tom and any members of the Green Committee. But the questions I've asked the sales rep on paper and through our conversations, I'm pretty amazed, pretty pleased.
Are they charging? Are they collecting that revenue then?
Well, that's one of the questions still unanswered. She's at a trade show in Las Vegas until Wednesday.
Well, that's where you got to go to get the question.
Yeah, the question is who owns the station, although we would receive revenue, but I still want to know who owns that station.
Right.
And basically, she's telling me the only thing we'd be responsible for is painting lines. They would be willing to absorb the costs above and beyond reimbursement. And again, I'm researching this.
Yeah.
And I will get back to you, hopefully within a month.
Free, right?
What's that?
Nothing's ever free.
Well, you know, I don't know the motivation there. As I said, I'm going to call references in New York State, and she's listed them. There's towns to call, town managers and mayors. There's a service center where there's a charger, Livingston. So I want to be optimistic and positive.
Sure.
But I also want to have you consider a level 3 charger for Dalton.
On these allocated funds and the delay in manufacturing, how much cash we put up front versus over that 5-year period?
Well, let's take option 2, Joe, in terms of, let's look at charge point. You have to have 100 kilowatts at the level 3 level to get reimbursed. So you cannot have a level 2 charger. You have to go with the level 3.
Right, but if we allocate 293, are we paying that all up front?
You do. You do, yes. You have to allocate that money up front. 160 comes back at the conclusion when it's installed. That is right. That's
So we're
what,
paying our 5-year maintenance plan up front?
yes. Every level 3 charger requires it.
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to come up with I don't see us come up with 293 in one chunk of change.
For 2 charging stations, 4 ports, I mean, obviously the idea is appealing on a number of levels in terms of the benefit, but the cost at this point seems to be outweighing benefit in my mind, the upfront cost at least. The total upfront realized cost of $293,000 for this example would be a big ask of townspeople in this budget season, but, you know.
And next budget season, we're probably gonna be looking at Walker Brook for $1 million and a sewer line for $700,000.
True.
That's why I asked Tom for
In
a
context.
3 to 5 year capital plan. 'Cause
It's tough.
we gotta look at this in totality.
Yeah.
Because the other question I have is what percentage of EV vehicles do we have within the town of Dalton?
It's a good question.
And if you,
Well, we don't know that, but again, Joe, I go back to the state mandate that by 2035, there will be no vehicles sold, but EV vehicles.
right, but that's 11 year, 20 when? 2035?
35.
So 11 years, right? So things are gonna change then because there might be more incentives.
Well, they're projecting, of course, the number of EVs are increasing as they have been. And as I said, there are no level 3s in the county other than the Tesla. And this is a long-term investment in our community.
Oh, I get that, I
Yeah.
get that. But
And-
if residents, if we're gonna put things up, and this is kind of what, when we get our strategic plan that we did earlier this summer, fall, looking at the next 3 years, if we're gonna put up some numbers in different programs, and we have Walker Brook for $1 million, sewer lines for $700,000, $19 million of road repairs, we have to go and do, in my opinion, we have to go do a little bit more research about what's the value to the town of the EV chargers. If we have a higher population of EV vehicles, sure, right? But if we don't, then if you look at the per capita cost of this to EV vehicles, what is that? I don't know. What's that math? So,
Well,
I'm not saying yes or no, it should be presented.
At the very least, please consider the senior center and Pine Grove where we have monies allocated for paving. And I know earlier you mentioned about parking along there too. So there should be an EV consideration for any parking that's going to happen along Pine Grove in terms of High Street there, because that's where it would be sited. But if you consider either the senior center or Pine Grove, that $293,000 figure is half, $150,000. And of course, you're going to get.
Yeah, we might crawl, walk, run to your point, Tony. We could probably do a chart, a 3-port in one of the locations. That's what we can afford this year.
Yeah,
Right.
it'd be 2 ports, charge point would be, it's not a dual port, 2 machines with a port at each
Each
machine.
machine, yeah.
So there's 2 spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be a fast charger.
Tony, can you mention that figure for demand charge again?
Yep. I want to be clear that I've done research on what's termed demand charges. And I know I presented Tom with a big question mark with the charger here, because I asked to see the bill. Sandy made me a copy.
I'm just trying to get to, you have a minimum of 100 kilowatts is required per site for reimbursement.
Correct.
But I thought you also mentioned 100 kilowatts in terms of.
100 kilowatts brings you to the point where you will be billed for what's termed a demand charge. Demand charge, and you can look this up, and I've done it, and I've called people on this, is aside from the consumption of electricity, which is kilowatts per hour. Demand charges is the power, kilowatts, that's used over a 15-minute period within a 30-day billing cycle. It's as though traffic comes together all at once. They're traveling, but it comes together all at once for a short amount of time, and the electric company is going to charge us for that surge of electricity that we incur for that 15-minute period. It's significant. It'll be 30 to 70% of the electric bill. Now remember, we charge the user as we see fit. We own the dashboard, so we set the rate. And the nice thing about ChargePoint is we can also lower the kilowatt hours. That is, if we don't want to have that charge at 62.56, we can say 50 kilowatt. Well, guess what? That demand charge will go down.
Well, the reason I say that is because you say that a minimum of 100 kilowatt or kilowatt hours. I'm not sure.
Kilowatt.
kilowatts is required per site for reimbursement.
Correct.
So you're talking about how much they get used versus what their capacity is.
No, they have to have a capacity of at least 100 kilowatts.
Right, so the demand charge is a function of how much that gets used, not its
Not
basic
on that.
capacity. I heard the 100 figure twice, and I was,
Yeah.
in one of them it's required, and the other you're saying you don't want to go
Right.
there, so I just wanted to
Well,
clarify that.
The example.
And I think you have clarified.
Okay, all right. This station here, I believe we've been misbilled because they're charging us a demand charge. And we don't have 480 kilowatt power out there. That's a level 2 charger. And so we shouldn't be being billed for demand charges.
How often is that charge out there?
Excuse me?
How often is that charge out there, do you know?
I don't know, but I know the bill that I saw was about $141, and of that, almost 111 was for demand charges.
Is that monthly?
Monthly.
Monthly.
That was a monthly bill. So it wasn't a great amount of electricity.
How much do we charge to use that one?
I don't believe so. No.
It's a free charger?
Yeah, I don't. These are all we would charge. We would set a market rate. So for instance, at the stationary factory, they charge 30 cents a kilowatt. And that's fairly reasonable, 30 to 50 cents a
We
kilowatt.
just put 4 stations at the hospital and we charge to use those. And 2 things it moves people along too. Because if they're there longer, then the rate goes up to get the car moving so the next consumer can use the port.
That's correct.
I just wonder, if we're paying $100 and something a month out here for this one, but no, and it's free, how often it's being used. Maybe you're the only one using it, Tony. Come down there.
You and Tom, right? Tom, you and Evie, right?
So,
No, I haven't.
so the net cost, right?
Yes.
And the cost per year over 5 years,
Yeah.
that is not including any revenue
No,
that we make.
not at all. No, those are bottom line fixed costs that we'll incur
Yeah.
every year, but we will receive revenue back. Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know what those demand charges are going to be.
I
Okay,
understand.
so, yeah.
Just want to be clear that this is just the cost, solely the cost,
It's a fixed cost.
irrespective of revenue,
That's correct.
future revenue.
I would suggest just for town meeting purposes and planning for this is that there's some more pro forma work done to kind of project what that would look like. You know, even if it's 10% or 15% revenue coming in of that annual cost, we know that some of it's offset. I just think it's going to be very challenging here when we look at a 3-year capital plan, you know, what that looks like. But it's a good thing. But to your point, Tony, it's like, okay, maybe we don't do all the locations, but we do one to get started, right? Because although whether or not, you know, go back to my other question, what's the percentage of EV vehicles in Dalton? I don't know. But what's the percentage of people that come here for sporting events or for other activities that have electric vehicles? And
Sure.
to have that kind of, and if we can track out of towners versus in town, can we charge them a higher rate for out of town?
I don't think you can. No.
I'd also like to see this in context of any other capital needs, particularly, you know, certainly this year and coming too. In order to see the full picture of what we'd be asking town voters to consider at town meeting, if you were to choose one, Tony, I know this is just your opinion,
Oh, yeah.
where would you locate?
Well, we have the senior center, both senior center and Pine Grove are EJC locations.
Yeah.
So it has to be one of those. And it's a toss-up. I mean, that has to be paved, but there's money left over from last year's ARPA money to pave at Pine Grove.
Mhm.
And the senior center, there's no paving required. So any monies that's left over, which is not a lot of money, maybe 4,000 or 5,000, you know, it's a savings that way. So they're both centrally located in my mind. They're both acceptable, and I know if John Boyle was here, I'd look at John and say, I'm sorry that Greenwich is really outside the zone because it's the most costly of all the sites. There's no reimbursement beyond up to the third port.
I could see us potentially supporting one at Pine Grove.
And we'll all be interested in hearing the business model of that New York company.
Yeah,
There's that too.
I hope to get back to you within 4 to 6 weeks with more information, and I hope it's a real positive report. I mean, I'm all for it. If the references are good, and if I have to make a trip out there and see for myself, I'd love to see that for the town.
Any objections to continue exploring this?
No objections to continue to explore and then consider, maybe some compromise proposal potentially for this year, but again, I need to see the rest of the budget as well.
Okay.
Great work on this, Tony. Thank you. to
Thank you,
and
gentlemen
members of the Green
and lady.
Committee and everybody else who participated in this.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right. Budget's under 20K.
Okay.
Yeah. You have a packet of them,
Yep.
and I have kind of a cheat sheet to them. Here. Whole lot of them are level funded.
Yeah.
A couple going down. Some are only going up by the 2% stipend. There are some that are, the expense line is going up. Conservation Commission is asking for another $520, which is 23.91% of your budget, for an additional conference attendee at the annual meeting of the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions. Central Supplies is going up $720 for additional toner cost anticipated. Landfill closure monitoring going up just $88. BRPC is only going up $135. I would have expected more. And then again, the cultural activities proposed to go up to include the cost of Dalton Day. Again, one alternative from that is to fund it from free cash this year and find out how much we can expect in sponsorships so that the ultimate cost of the operating budget will be reduced by that amount.
It was such a success, Alyssa, that we created a monster.
I know.
Yeah, congratulations. Thanks for raising our budget. Yeah. No, actually, I think we just look for alternative funding sources this year.
So my hope was that these could be taken as a whole as being non-controversial. We did have a chance to look at them. We can cover the rises in more detail if you like. But this would clear a number of items off your plate if we could give them some kind of tentative.
I mean, I'd be in support of TAing the decreasing budget, 154, 185, the level funded and the 2% stipend rise only.
There.
And then the first 4 increases seem, reasonable on a dollar amount. It's the Dalton Day, which I love, but that, we have to absorb the cost of that if we want to fund it ourselves. And that's a significant chunk of change at $9,000. So I think that's probably the one we should talk about more than anything, but.
Yeah, and I think it's entirely reasonable to wait a year and see what they can dig up for sponsorship so that we have a much better idea of what the actual cost of this is going to be. That's the projected budget for the event.
Yeah. Or we, again, we compromise and we say, okay, we can maybe put forth a proposal to fund some of this year from the budget. And the rest will need to be more creatively, but, that's.
We get a little time here. We can look at opera, and we can look at different funding sources and bring. I think we want to support the Dalton Day, no problem. That's not going to be what we do. Just how we're going. I love sponsorship ideas. So TA, everything except for 693?
Does that seem reasonable for everyone?
Mark, you good?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to do it is exactly what you're saying. I wonder though about leaving some money in there, seeing how many sponsorships we can get,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and going forward
If
with
it's
that.
poorly putting, maybe go half of that number for now. And
Okay.
just, again, we're really doing our best today to just make an effort to make up that $130,000,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think we're making good progress on that. And certainly there's some small sacrifices that need to be made, and we won't be the only ones whose budgets are impacted by that, but I think we're making good progress on that. I mean, I'd be in support of supporting half of this amount
So
potentially.
is that a motion reducing the 4,500? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. And then TA on the rest of these budgets, I mean, they're reasonable in terms of, being level funded to 2% rise only. I don't know that we need to dig into these.
Yeah, again, the intent was, if anyone did want to pull out a budget and have it presented, that's fine. But these, I figured, would be the low-hanging fruit
Yeah,
to move through.
yes. Berkshire Regional Planning. So we pay $10,000 a year for technical assistance. That's not a membership fee, that's just, is that as we use it, or is that just something we pay them?
Yeah, there's the statutory amount, let me get that out. There's the statutory amount, and then there's the technical
I
assistance
see.
fee. And I would say we use every bit of that.
Okay. I mean, that's like, I would say one of the biggest dollar amounts in these budgets.
You know, especially with the active town planner.
Yeah. Okay.
You good?
Well, one other area is, well, I guess there's a 5-year average in town advertising, about 8,771. We budgeted last year 10,500, requested to budget another 10,500. I'm wondering if we need to budget that much.
Yeah, and I leave that one
Take it down
alone
a
because
couple
the
of
rates go up like crazy.
Well, I'm just asking questions, not proposing anything, just pointing it out as an opportunity potentially.
I just want to know something about that.
Yeah.
Like for jobs,
Yep.
open positions, we generally no longer use the Eagle anymore because it costs so much money.
Yep.
I've been advertising on free websites, our town website, so really we try not to spend money on employment anymore. So, just a note on that.
Yeah, I see the FY '24 is way down, so I would be fine with.
I think we should cut that a little bit.
Which one did you go to?
5,000.
That's how we did it.
198. Town ad.
Town advertising, and just, I'm looking for low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we can say to townspeople that we successfully trimmed budget by, we'll get that dollar amount to
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
I think that's a big win for tonight. I'd be impressed with the work of the board this evening.
You
So
wanna
is there a
take-
motion?
You want to take it down to?
What do you suggest? I'll take your lead on,
I would say 3,000.
take it down 3,000.
Take it down to 3,000.
Oh, wow.
Because we've only used 1,100 so far this year. I don't think we're going to be doing as much hiring over the next year or two. I hope we're not doing so
Well-
much hiring as we have been as well.
Let's look at the history. Let's split the difference and maybe bring it to 5,000.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's
And
good.
so, Mr. Chairman, I move that we reduce the town advertising budget for fiscal year 2025 from 10,500 proposed to 5,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? You good with this too?
I'm good with that.
All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries.
And I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And then did we vote on the TA for the rest?
TA for the rest, and with the change to the culture activities to 4,500.
Beautiful, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
I would like to go over the proposed money articles.
Yes,
There's about 1 million of them.
And this agenda is going on.
right here. I see it.
So I kept it 2 hours, and we're kind of over that, so. we're not sure.
I can do this fairly quickly. This is just an introduction. I don't
Okay.
need any decisions, but I wanted to at least get some things on the table. Up at the top are the ones that we usually do. Obviously, you're recommending the reserve fund at 60 rather than 65,000 now. Briefly, I have good news about our OPEB. As you know, we were fully funded last year. We're now about $200,000 over in about a $6 million budget. My goal is to be about 10% over, so another 400,000. But some of that we can make up with interest. So I'm only proposing.
When I brought that up, you were shocked that we were.
I'm sorry?
When I brought that up a couple months ago, you were shocked that we were fully funded on that. I think there's only a few communities in the state that are.
Very few.
Our auditor
Count
was
them
impressed.
on both hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary job. So congratulations to those who came before me who made it possible.
Yeah.
So that, but again, because of variations in the markets which we're invested in, that's where our money is. Some people would like to see us invested at 120%. I think that's excessive. I'm going for 110%. So that would be another 400,000 from where we are now. But, you know, over time, and interest will make up some of that difference as well. So I'm only proposing 100,000 this year, maybe the same for the next couple of years, and see where we are. Again, a lot of it, though, does depend on markets. I just wanted to mention that particular one. There are a couple of items proposed from stabilization, one from highway, one for highway, one for police, the usual annual cruiser. And what I've done is I put the items under the departments. So buildings or buildings and grounds has a certain amount that's possible. Now, all of the rest of it is proposed to be funded through free cash. Because free cash was certified late last year, we didn't know how much we had. We budgeted conservatively. We're getting $1.1 million from free cash from last year added to the free cash that we're going to get this year. I anticipate the total to be about $2.1 million. Just to be clear, it is never a good idea, except for the 200,000 we do now, to try to apply that free cash to the tax rate. All that does is it pushes off the reckoning for the spending that we're doing and makes the following year very difficult to fund. The way to trim the budget is to trim the actual budget, and then free cash will fall as time goes by. However, this is a good year for projects, so that's why there are so many. I had originally not been quite so sanguine about how much free cash we were going to have, so I set aside some of this. The things in green were things that I had as lower priorities. But right now, we would be spending $1.335 million out of free cash, out of a total of $2.1 million, which would still leave us with $650,000 in free cash, which is, it's good to have a certain amount during the year in case you need to spend it on something. But I think that's probably plenty. So that's
One three eight if we take out the lower priorities, right?
I'm sorry?
1.38 if we take out the lower priorities, it's 1.63 if we don't, right?
The lower priority only came to 255,000.
Correct. But the total money articles is 1.63.
Yes, that includes stabilization and free cash.
Oh, okay, got it.
So, yeah, and that's broken out to the right. About 300,000 in stabilization, about 1.3 in free cash.
Now, the level 3 electric vehicle
I was
charging
going to mention that.
stations, right?
I already had those on based on a previous proposal from the Green Committee, which was before the cost of the charging stations went up. It was from last year, essentially.
Right, but now we're at this allocation if we did.
So there's 70,000 in here for that purpose now.
Right,
Well,
but,
7,000 requested, yeah.
but if we go with one of the programs presented, and let's say that Eagle Company doesn't pan out, we have to pay upfront anywhere from,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money, so
Yeah.
we just need to.
So, and you can understand my concern when I heard the new figures.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah.
kind of counting on
Yep.
these figures. So, obviously, all of it up for change and discussion. Discussion certainly when department heads come in to talk about their operating budget as well. If anyone has any questions about any of this, a couple of things. The deposit for the Barton property needs to be returned because it wasn't sold. And that, because it came in last year, it cleared to free cash. The account that it went into cleared to free cash. So in order to give it back, we have to take it out of free cash. It's not, it wasn't in a standalone account, separate from the operating budget.
I thought it would go into an escrow account
Yeah.
and be returned, but.
Well, yeah, but that account was in the operating budget.
So she's waiting for her return of 25 grand?
She has to wait for town meeting. Yeah.
That's painful.
She know
Well,
this?
she didn't decide she wasn't going to buy it for some time. So,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm sure you guys are in conversation, I just think that's.
Yeah. And I don't know why I have it in here. I had free cash for the office admin. That's not supposed to be in there.
Okay.
Folded that in. Dan, I did include some skate park design and engineering, collaborative design. I don't know whether that's an accurate figure or not. So I would just ask you to go through these items and prepare questions for department heads. If you can get them to me early, that's great. I'm fine with sending information out to the board whenever we have it, because there are a lot of these.
Well, it's like skate park design engineering, where are we gonna put the skate park? Is that been determined?
Well, that's part of the process. It would also identify potential sites.
Yeah.
Again, it wouldn't be implementing anything.
What I don't see on this
Yeah.
is a major issue for our town, is besides, I don't see any additional road work repair or additional sidewalk repair.
Above the chapter 90 that that we usually, or will get, rather.
We had a $19 million problem, and I don't see any road work.
That is a good point.
Just to speak to the sidewalks, again, funding has not been the problem for the sidewalks. It's been crew time. And it's so much more expensive to bid it out that Bud hasn't felt comfortable doing that. So that's it could cost several times the amount to hire an extra crew to come in to do it. So that's one kind of choke point there on bottleneck.
Well, there's something to say about
Yeah.
crew availability versus repairing sidewalks that need to be repaired and just get it done, right? That's a conversation.
My understanding is that the need is kind of extreme, and I'll check it and see
Yeah, I still don't see any roads on
what
this.
his current plan is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the big project for next year is Orchard Road. Oh, it says Orchard Street here, it's Orchard Road. And that we have, you know, sort of in progress.
And also don't see, assuming timeline, I don't know what the timeline is, but Walker Brook.
Yeah, so there is a request for grant application funds for Walker Brook. And I got an estimate of $15,000 to $20,000. That would go to an engineering firm that would do the cost-benefit analysis and would prepare the grant application for FEMA through MEMA. It's a complex process, and they would do all the work necessary for that application. And using the preliminary engineering that we have already done.
How long can we hold on to free cash flow?
If it's a money article at town meeting, it stays in a,
No, I mean, if we were to put together a 3-year strategic plan of capital and say that's gonna cost us $7 million in the next 3 years. But we're not gonna
Yeah.
do Walker Brook for 2 years. We can say, okay, out of free cash, we're gonna take $1 million, just kind of
put it away in an account, it stays there.
it stays there, right? So rather than spending 1.3 or 1.6, now, we need to kind of have that picture. I'm really, what I'm really concerned about that spend.
You feel like we're spending money to spend money?
Huh?
You feel like we're spending money?
We're spending money just to spend money, right?
Maybe in some areas, but other areas I can see a very real need.
I can see the need, but it's a lower priority than, we've already pre-committed to the residents of Dalton Division that we can do a $700,000 sewer. And we've already committed to the residents that we're gonna do something with this property for Walker Brook. We're 1.7 million.
Those are figures that would typically be borrowed
Yeah.
and not paid up front.
Borrowing.
Or put it to that's kind of what the plan that we need to make sure.
But without knowing the costs of the project, which we would, for example, Walker Brook,
Well, the preliminary cost is $5 million.
And we get a 25% match of that.
Yeah. Now, I will mention that in the entire state this year, there was $30 million in the FEMA money
Yeah.
to do that grant program for the entire state.
wow.
I had a project in Conway that it took 4 years to get funded.
Yeah. It's not gonna be easy.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be
And
easy.
it's not gonna happen right away, I think is the answer.
Yeah, the same program.
Tom, would you be able to, I want to be efficient and not ask too much of your time, but at the same time, I do want maybe a ranking of priority, top priority to lowest priority, rank it that way. I don't know, is that useful? Would that be useful for the board to see?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is, you know, if you look at the highest dollar request, the new Ford F-550 takes the cake, you know, from the capital stabilization fund, right? 163,783.
And just to be clear, we can afford all of this at this point. This is free cash. This is not something that's going on the tax rate.
Right.
It's just a question of whether this board, and then certainly the finance committee and then town voters want to support these expenditures
So, I'm sorry,
to this level.
sorry. So what is, actually, is there going to be capital expenses, or any of these things, the cruisers, the F-150, or everything's being paid out of free cash?
No, the cruiser and the highway F-550 are slated to come out of capital stabilization. And there's a transfer we need to make out of sewer stabilization.
And then we're replenishing capital stabilization by 150 and sewer by 150 as well. So
Yeah.
simultaneous to that, okay.
Well, we spent a lot more out of sewer, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to be a little bit more aggressive with that.
Yeah,
And again, these are preliminary figures. We don't have a final free cash number yet. I wouldn't be amiss to putting more money back into capital stabilization either.
I see.
And then the other thing I don't see in this, and I don't know the timing, this goes back to the plan and then back to Dalton Division Road. Depending upon what comes out of that, and Pittsfield not doing their part, is that we're gonna have the cost of.
The easements.
Right, we have no idea what that looks like. Right, and that's
No,
27,
that's
that's
the-
26,
yeah.
27, right, so that's 2 years out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the easements aren't slated to be done until towards the end of the project when the engineering is finished.
Right.
Because that makes no sense.
Right, right.
logistically.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's a good start.
so yeah, please do get me questions on all of these. I'll go out to the department heads, get answers, so that we can all have a better idea, and then I recap them in the meeting so the public.
I agree with Dan that we should have a prioritization list here. And we should also have a projection of our next 3 years of capital needs.
Yeah.
That we may want to hold some free cash and prioritize it differently.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with that.
Just so you have it, the one item in red here is an item that Bud would like, but he would like it paid for over 3 years, now that you mention it, which is a new sewer flusher. What we have now is a flushing unit that is towed by another truck. And what he's proposing is a single truck that does sewer flushing that would also fulfill other functions. Oh, I gotta get one of these too. So this is just the highway department, except down at the bottom in FY '24, that 46,324 is the projected, that can't be right. I thought that's supposed to be the police cruiser, but the police cruiser would be more like 65. So I'll revisit that figure
And
as well.
you reused the spreadsheet, so this is Dalton, not Conway, right?
Ha, right.
That's okay. Just,
Yeah.
yep, okay.
It's a great spreadsheet. I
Yeah,
have to
it's
tell you.
absolutely.
I always still think it's my.
All right, this is helpful. I wonder why those,
So this is in addition to the list that we just went through.
This is the longer-term plan for highway trucks and equipment.
I see. Okay.
And I have tabs on this worksheet
Good.
for police and IT and buildings and grounds.
Yeah.
I just don't have them filled out at
So
this
if I'm,
point.
if I'm following the math here. Okay, these are the, okay, all right. Phew.
It's in a rudimentary phase. But just to let you know that I do have something at least like this, at least for highway, that can be built on. And I do expect a recommendation from the Department of Revenue in their financial management review for their best practices for putting together a capital planning committee.
There's no additional road repair in here.
Yeah, it hasn't been considered a capital item.
What's it considered?
So, that's a good, I'll bring that up with Bud and see what he thinks. I think
We talked
he's going to
about,
say he's going to be pretty busy with Orchard Road. But I'll bring it up with him. Happy to do that.
I mean, I have a question now, but I guess I could just send you an email about the length, the lifespan of the Ford truck. F-550 is being requested for replacement this year, but it would seem what do we do?
2014.
When it says 12-year planned life, it seems like we're not there yet, but just, I don't know if that's,
Yeah, he's.
you know, are we doing it a year early? Can we wait 1 year on it?
It's been a problematic.
With this particular truck?
It's been a problematic vehicle. He's had to put a lot of repairs into it.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and just propose that we bring this all back to our next meeting, which I assume we're
Yes.
going to do,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because we're at 9:30 right
Yeah.
now, and we
Okay.
still have exec session, and
One-
I'm sorry, I'm losing.
One more item, the library will have a slight decline in their budget because their new director won't be being paid as much as the old director. If staff needs to come in to present that, they'll have to switch, they'll have to do it later than it's on the schedule. But since it's a decline in the budget, do you think it's necessary for the library staff to come in to present that? Okay. That'll be all. I'll still have the sheet for you and be able to go over it, but, yeah, okay, thank you. All right.
Town manager update?
Yeah. The December state supplemental budget included $15 million from municipalities for damages or emergency response costs from extreme weather over the past year. The first round of $10 million is going to 37 communities, and Dalton is scheduled to receive $20,000.
All right.
We also received notice from the state that 120,000 roughly will be added to our Chapter 90 account from the Fair Share program created by the initiative to tax income over $1 million at a higher rate and apply those taxes to education and transportation. In the budget, I've included, for next year, I've included $60,000 in revenue from that source because we don't know where 120,000 is. We don't know whether it's a high figure or a low figure or a middle figure. But that, I have included that in the budget that you have. The textile recovery program at the transfer station has collected 13,945 pounds of textiles so far, generating $976.15 a ton. The quarterly report for our electricity aggregation program is in for the first quarter since Eversource dropped its very high prices from 0.2199 to 0.1485, a drop of 1/3. Our rate was still at 0.096 and is just switched to 0.138, which is still under the Eversource basic rate. Residential savings for the last quarter were a total of $169,888 for an average of 1,954 accounts over that time. With just a small difference for the next 3 months, savings will be less, but the town plan is still less expensive. We expect to get our state cybersecurity check report soon and understand that it will have a variety of recommendations, both for software and for behavioral changes. Our consultant is making an inventory of all the current hardware and software in anticipation of a global move to Windows 11, which will help ensure all our systems are compatible. One of the things I've included for a money article is half the money to make that change, which we can do in FY25. The other half can be made in FY26. As most people know, we had an extraordinary event in town recently, the wake and funeral of Air Force Staff Sergeant Jacob Gallagher. I'd like to commend Chief Stroud for management of the event, which involved coordination with multiple entities at various levels of government. The Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources has received several inquiries about the Barton property, which is a good sign for the town being able to pass on ownership soon. I understand now that they have one serious potential buyer. I'm pleased to report that the Pittsfield DPW fixed Gulf Road on Friday, December 13th. So long as there's no flooding damage this winter, we should be able to open it in the spring.
It's wonderful news.
And I'll be meeting with the mayor tomorrow morning on that and all the other Dalton Vision Road matters,
Okay.
things like
Do
that.
you need backup for that meeting? Do I
No,
need to cancel
no,
it?
thanks.
Okay, all right.
And we covered the veterans agent already. Finally, I had mentioned some time ago that I would like to be excused from the April 8th Select Board meeting. We'll be done with the budget and town meeting matters. Yeah, I actually mentioned about a year ago. And some friends of mine and I have made plans to see the solar eclipse in Burlington, Vermont, which isn't until about 2 in the afternoon. If necessary, I should be able to be on Zoom.
Any objections to that? I don't think so.
I encourage it.
No objections.
I'm sure Alyssa will be able to do whatever.
You
needs to
keep
be
the
done.
agenda maybe a little lighter if needed, and, yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Awesome. Anything else, Tom?
No, thank you.
Any questions for Tom manager? Nice job, Tom. Thank you. Any future agenda items?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a future agenda item or what, but a long time town employee passed away. Mr. White, he used to be head of the cemetery since
One of the services.
the services are Fridays. Yeah, George White is his name.
Maybe formal recognition on the next agenda.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's what I want to bring up. I don't know what we could do, but he said
There's the possibility of an in memoriam message in the town report.
Yeah.
that'd be,
Oh, that'd be
That would be wonderful.
Good idea. Yeah.
that'd be cool.
And, you know, maybe a proclamation recognizing
Dedication
his
or
service to the
something.
town.
Yeah.
Hard work and all.
Yep.
Sarah Franklin, also a longtime employee, had passed a couple weeks ago. She used to work in our office. She was the interdepartmental clerk for quite a while.
Oh,
Okay. All right, any other future agenda? Items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting, just I got one, just a quick update. We did get confirmation from Jim Driscoll that the fire, the water commissioners will be meeting this week, and part of their agenda is to vote on return the balance of ARPA funds back to the town. So we'll see how their vote goes and go from there. So it'll just be the balance while they fight legally for the rest of it.
Okay.
So, but
Fair enough.
any other items?
Also, there's a bridge.
Yeah, name to be determined, or name to be announced, I guess. Yeah.
Understood.
Any remarks to the select board? Hearing none. Announcements, annual car permits, bag stickers, recycling only car permits are available for purchase at the transfer station and on the town's website. There are numerous committees and boards with vacancies. Please see the town website for more information or reach out to the town manager's office. Is your electricity bill too high? The town has contracted with Colonial Power to provide an electricity plan for town residents that takes advantage of joining with other communities that have a larger customer base for negotiations, which have resulted in prices lower than current Eversource prices. Please note, this may not always be the case. For more detail, to opt in or opt out, visit the town website or call the town manager's office. Dalton Housing Authority is seeking a volunteer to fill a vacant seat on its board, must be a resident of Dalton. Please call 413-684-1470 for more information. And the town is holding a photo contest for the cover of the 2023 annual town report. Photos must be submitted to the town manager's office by February 1st. See the town website for more details. The Dalton Police Department would like to remind residents of the winter parking ban, which is in effect from November 15, 2023 through April 15, 2024. There will be no parking allowed on streets between these dates and between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. The Department of Public Works would like to remind residents to remove basketball hoops in the roadway, as well as the ones that hang over the roadway between the dates of November 1st, 2023 and April 15, 2024. Next special meeting is scheduled, next special meeting?
It
Next-
is special because it's off schedule.
Oh, okay, next special meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday, February 5th, 2024, at 7 p.m. at the Senior Center.
Are we moving it over?
Not until we,
Okay.
yeah, with
All right.
an option for remote participation, we get the ADA issues.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And if I could have a motion to adjourn to executive session and not return to open.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move to executive session and not return to open session for reason number 7, to comply with or act with the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, namely to review and approve executive session minutes, reason number 11, 2023, and reason number 2, anticipated executive session in accordance with GLC 30 AS 21A2 to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief, DPW superintendent, and DPW
Not
foreman.
the DPW foreman, sorry.
Well, and not the DPW.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Uh,
Oh, is there a second? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, roll call vote?
Mark Stroud,
Yes.
Robert Bishop,
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Joe Jacob.
Yes. And motion to adjourn the open session? Okay, second, okay.
Second.
Good night, Dalton, thank you.